Today, we're going to talk about Adobe's updated terms of use and what it means for landscape photographers. So recently, the internet went into an uproar about Adobe's new terms of use update that was being prompted in Photoshop. Creatives were saying Adobe is snooping on your data, using it for their AI, possibly violating NDAs and more. But is this really what's happening? What does this mean for landscape photographers? Should we be concerned? Should we be looking for alternative software? What should we do? Before we dive in though, remember, I am not a lawyer, I'm just a person on the internet that has read the same terms of use and Adobe's response as anyone can. I will say though, I have read lots of software agreements over the years, including ones by cloud vendors and software as a service providers, as I have a background in systems administration and somewhat understand what's going on in the background at these large data centers and some of the things they have to do just to be able to run these platforms. But again, I'm not a lawyer, and you should form your own opinion about what Adobe's doing with their terms of use update. So what happened exactly? Well, many people experienced a pop-up when launching Photoshop from Adobe saying their terms of use had been updated. There were 3 items in this update, but the first one is what caught all the attention. And it said, it clarified that we may access your content through both automated and manual methods, such as for content review, sections 2.2 and 4.1. To continue using Adobe products, you had to click the Accept and Continue button. If you didn't click that, then you couldn't use the software. So several creatives headed to Section 2.2, which talks about privacy and how Adobe accesses your content, and Section 4.1, which defined that content. Several people also saw Section 4.2, which though not listed as updated, does talk about licenses and sublicenses of your content. So based on their read of these terms of use, they had these concerns which hit the internet. Automated access to your content, automated processes were accessing it. Manual access to your content, people are actually reviewing your content. And then the whole license, sublicense question, which people leapt to thinking that Adobe can now sell your work as their own. And then, was this content being used to build their own AI? And then the question of whether this was affecting local content or just cloud content. Of course, this led to angry tweets, online articles of outrage, YouTube videos, and people with pitchforks in the comments about what Adobe had done in their terms of use. Now, Adobe has offered a public response to this in a follow-up article on their blog to try to verify what their actual intent of this Terms and Services update was. Now, I don't think this Terms of Use update means what so many people are thinking and that they're making leaps in what Adobe's intent actually was. So let's take a look at what they said and why I think people are misinterpreting what Adobe has said. So I'm just going to pop Section 2.2 up on the screen and not read it all out loud, but it'll be on the screen. But essentially, they are saying they can access your content via automated and manual processes, but only in limited ways and only as permitted by law. That is actually in the usage statement. So why would they do this? And they note this in this update. They note things like responding to feedback and support requests, detecting, preventing, or addressing any fraud or security or legal or technical issues. That's why they need this automated and manual access to your data. Now, from an automated standpoint, of course, anything running on the cloud has automated processes accessing it. Just for the right to operate, Adobe's making backups of the data, maybe replicating the data within multiple data centers, all to protect your data. That is one of the benefits of the service they provide, is they're sort of taking care of your data. Of course, they have to do that with automated processes. They also note the support request is a case where Adobe staff member may very well access your cloud data. Maybe they're helping resolve an issue with a piece of software or particular content. Maybe you're having problems with an image file. They're simply declaring in this section and being upfront that their support people may access your data as part of a support request. They're being upfront about that. They also mention they may access content with machine learning or how you're using the program using their machine learning in order to improve their services and software and the overall user experience. They then link to the machine learning page where they clarify this. They say this is for things you've made public or stored on their servers in the cloud. They also state you may opt out of this and give you directions on how to opt out so they won't do that with your data. Now, the internet also thought this meant they were training Adobe Firefly content with your data. This has been very clearly been stated they are not, as noted in the Adobe Firefly FAQ. No, we don't train on any Creative Cloud subscriber's personal content. For Adobe stock contributors, the content is part of Firefly's training dataset, but it's in accordance with stock contributor license agreements that you agreed to when you contributed to the stock sites. Now, I personally do not see anything here that is a cause for alarm, and it seems pretty typical of what any cloud service provider or software as a service provider might have in their terms of use in order to protect your data. So, Let's head over to section 4.1 that talks about the content. Again, I won't read this whole section to you, but this section defines the content of what they're looking at, and the illegal content is one of the things they might look for in an analysis and escalate for manual review. Essentially, if the automated process flags something as a risk, maybe it's illegal or violation of a license agreement, there's an internal process to have a manual review done to see if the risk is real. Cloud providers have legal obligations to not hold this illegal content on their system. Thus, they need this clause in order to allow them to keep that from happening, because you're storing data on their cloud and not your computer. And finally, section 4.2, which was not even updated this time around. Again, I won't read all of section 4.2, but I'll put it here on the screen. This section spooks people as they read it as Adobe is licensing your work for sale and redistribution. This license actually just allows their services to operate. As this section states, it is solely for the purpose of operating. These reasons can include creation of thumbnails, opening a file of Photoshop, the web app, and supported third-party integrations, something Adobe might be doing with another vendor that you've integrated with. They are not relicensing your content for sale. The section even states in the opening that they're only doing these relicensing for the right to operate, the ability to operate and run their services. Now, with all this turmoil that hit the internet, Adobe did release on June 6th a statement clarifying that they aren't trying to do what the internet claims they are. And I will link to that statement down in the description below for your reference. And I highly encourage you to go take a look at that statement and see what you think. So where does that leave us? To me, this all started people not understanding some of the nuances in the terms of use and getting excited about things that really aren't happening the way they think they are. First, this automated scanning of content is for files stored on the cloud. Yes, there is automated scanning and processing of cloud data because 1, Adobe needs to protect that data via backups and such, and 2, because they have certain legal obligations and their own terms of usage to proactively monitor, which they do with these automated processes. This wasn't Adobe building their AI engine on your data, and there are several reasons a cloud provider needs to disclose automated access might be happening to your data, as we've covered. And in these terms, they do acknowledge manual access and review of cloud data when warranted, maybe to verify an automated scan is accurate or their support responding to a ticket support request. And the license and sublicense piece people are getting excited about ignored the part that said solely for the purpose of operating. They aren't going to sell off your work. They aren't going to sell it for profit. They need that in order to legally perform certain functions of their software, as I've described before. They are being upfront about that as we would want. They're telling us that yes, we need to sublicense this in order to accomplish those tasks. With all that said, I'm not overly concerned with this update. Many of the items here are typical of cloud services and the nature of how they work. Adobe simply being upfront with how they access and process data stored on their systems. The internet has just blown this way out of proportion. Now I get with the advent of artificial intelligence, AI, that a lot of creatives are concerned. I am too. And it is good to stay current with what's happening on the platforms you use on a regular basis, whether you want to support them or not. How data is being mined on social media, websites, cloud, and software service providers. It's just really unusual times right now as people race to these AI solutions. But don't panic unduly, be observant, watch what companies are saying, but think about it thoughtfully and not on emotional reactions on the internet. These are unusual times for sure. For creatives, it is good to be informed, but times are changing. Don't panic, just stay in tune with what's going on across the internet. You can avoid a lot of this by simply working with your files locally and not storing content on Adobe's cloud. That keeps a whole lot of this from happening and keeps your data safe and sound from any of this. Now, could Adobe have done this better? Yep. They obviously damaged trust in the creative community with this terms of service update. Even if they think people are misconstruing their intent, their communication certainly could have been better and more clear to prevent this break of trust. What could they have done to do this? 1, they could have been more concise with what data this affects. Don't leave us guessing. Tell us, is this cloud data? Is this local data? Be very clear about that to help alleviate concerns. 2, they should incorporate some of these clarifications into the legal terms of use document to help be clear. Take that, notice that clarification they released and incorporate it into the terms of use. Let's see a new update coming for that soon. And finally, on the pop-up notification, they should give you easy access to review the terms of service, and then if you choose not to accept it, allow you to cancel that and head to the cancellation page instead of just closing down all the software and just sort of leaving you out to dry with that. Now, for me, I'll continue using Adobe products because they are a core part of my workflow. With that said, I use Lightroom Classic predominantly and work with files on my local devices. I only have a handful of collections that even sync into the cloud. So a lot of this, I'm using my local data. I'm not using Adobe's cloud for very much. But even with the data that's there, I don't see anything here that's current cause for alarm or will it be motivating me to take any action? I think this is a non-issue at this point in time. So while I was finishing the editing of this video, Adobe dropped another clarification. This one is even better than the last one in my opinion. Like the June 6th clarification, I'll link to the full post down below in the description. But let's take a quick look at this most current update. First, Adobe says they'll be updating the terms of use again by June 18th with these clarifications. This directly addresses one of the things I've already brought up that I think Adobe should do. They should take these clarifications and pull them into the terms of service. So it appears they're listening to the feedback, which I think is a great thing. Next, they clarify 5 major points that were brought up by this terms of service update. First, you own your own content. They clarify they are not trying to take your ownership rights from you. That is not the purpose of the update. They clarify that they don't train generative AI on customer content. Again, they note that Firefly is trained on public domain content and Adobe stock, which they've said before in the past. Nothing changed. You have a choice to not participate in a product improvement plan, which does use some machine learning to evaluate what's going on. But you can opt out of that product improvement plan through the software, and they have directions on how to do that. Around the licenses, the sub-licenses, the licenses required to operate and improve their products on their behalf, they acknowledge they should be more narrowly tailored to the activities needed and defined. But they do want to clarify the license and sub-license do not grant or transfer ownership of your content. It's simply to allow them to do what they need to do as a service provider. Adobe also clarified they do not scan content stored locally on your computer in any way. This is exactly what it says. They are not scanning your local content. I think this clarification is even more clear than the one previously released on June 6th and demonstrates all the uproar was not cause for alarm, but leaps of interpretation by creatives making a mountain out of a molehill. I really think this was sort of a non-issue and a lot of things were misinterpreted. What about you? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Pro Adobe? Against Adobe? Is this something we should definitely be concerned about, or is it something people are overreacting? I'd like to hear down in the comments. So again, hopefully this video was helpful to you. Again, it's just my take on the whole Adobe drama, what I think, what its implication is for landscape photographers, and that is what it is. At the end of the day, you need to watch what's going on, read both sides, read Adobe's response, read what the people on the internet are saying, and sort of come to your own conclusion. For me, I'm not too concerned at this point in time. Anyways, hopefully it was helpful. If it was, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see future landscape photography content from me, including tips, tricks, behind the scenes, and mini gear reviews, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And thank you for watching.